Listen to me closely. This is not a gentle message. This is a divine interruption. What drained you was not sent to destroy you. It was permitted to prepare you. What exhausted you was not the end of your story. It was the final test before your elevation. I came to declare with authority and conviction that the season that emptied you, stretched you, broke your sleep, tested your faith, and made you question your own strength is finished. It has expired. It has lost its authority over your life. And whether your emotions agree or not, whether your circumstances confirm it or not, God has already closed that chapter. You did not imagine the pressure. You were not weak because you felt tired. You were not faithless because you asked questions in the dark. God saw every silent tear, every forced smile, every prayer you whispered when your voice could no longer shout. There were nights you laid down, but your mind kept running, replaying disappointments, reliving losses, trying to understand why obedience felt so heavy and patience felt unrewarded. But hear this truth and let it settle deep inside you. God never wastes a draining season. When something drains you, it is because it is extracting what no longer belongs in your next level. There are seasons designed to empty you of pride so God can fill you with power. Seasons designed to strip false confidence so God can establish unshakable trust. Seasons designed to remove your dependence on people, systems, and predictable outcomes so that your reliance becomes rooted in God alone. You thought the season was taking too much from you, but in reality, it was removing what would have limited you later. God was not punishing you. God was purifying you. That season drained your strength, because you were never meant to carry the next assignment with the same mindset. It drained your emotions because God was detaching you from expectations that would have broken you in abundance. It drained your patience because God was training you to move by instruction, not impulse. And now, the reason this message feels heavy and relieving at the same time is because your spirit recognizes the shift before your environment catches up. God works in phases, and phases do not announce themselves with noise. They transition quietly. One day you wake up and the weight feels different. The burden doesn't press as hard. The anxiety doesn't shout as loud. The fear doesn't control your decisions anymore. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. God has already moved you out of survival mode and into alignment mode. You survived what you should not have survived because God was sustaining you in ways you could not see. When resources ran low, God became your provision. When people walked away, God became your covering. When clarity disappeared, God became your direction. You were held together by grace when logic said you should have collapsed. That is proof that the draining season had an expiration date and it has now reached it. Do not confuse delay with denial. Do not confuse silence with absence. Do not confuse exhaustion with failure. Some of the most powerful transformations happen when you feel the weakest. God does His deepest work when your options run out, because that is when your heart becomes fully available. The season drained you because it demanded everything that was temporary so God could entrust you with what is eternal. There were moments you wanted to quit, not because you lacked faith, but because you were tired of being strong, tired of understanding everyone else while no one understood you, tired of giving without receiving, tired of believing when results seemed delayed. But God saw your endurance. God counted every step you took when you felt unseen. And now, what is coming will not require the same level of struggle because you are no longer the same person. The season that drained you, trained you. It sharpened your discernment. It strengthened your spiritual backbone. It taught you how to stand without applause, how to obey without explanation, how to trust without evidence. You learned how to keep moving when motivation died, and how to remain faithful when emotions fluctuated. That kind of endurance cannot be taught in comfort. It is forged in pressure. God is not bringing you out empty-handed. You are leaving that season with wisdom you did not have before, authority you did not recognize before, and resilience you did not know you carried. What felt like loss was actually investment. What felt like delay was actually development. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. Now listen carefully. Do not drag the mindset of a draining season into a new season of restoration. If God has released you, do not chain yourself with old fears. If God has healed you, do not reopen wounds with doubt. If God has shifted the season, do not keep rehearsing pain that no longer has permission to stay. The danger is not the season you survived. The danger is carry its thinking forward. God is restoring energy before restoring results. Peace before progress. Alignment before acceleration. Because if God gave you increase without healing the drain, it would crush you. That is why you feel rest entering your spirit before doors open externally. That is why your desires are changing. That is why your tolerance for chaos is decreasing. That is why your spirit is craving stillness, clarity, and purpose. The season that drained you taught you what you will never accept again. It taught you the cost of ignoring intuition, the price of overgiving, the damage of delayed obedience. And God allowed you to learn those lessons now so you would not repeat them later at a higher level. Pain was the teacher, but God was the instructor. You are stepping into a season where effort will be met with favor, where obedience will produce results, where faith will be rewarded with movement. Not because life becomes easy, but because God is now partnering with you in visible ways. The resistance you faced before was not a sign to stop. It was proof you were close. Resistance always increases when a season is about to end. Do not rush this transition. Do not panic if everything has not changed overnight. Seasons end spiritually before they end visibly. God changes the atmosphere before He changes the landscape. He adjusts your heart before He adjusts your surroundings. That is why your perspective is shifting, even if your circumstances are still catching up. The strength you lost is being restored differently. Not as adrenaline, but as authority. Not as emotional excitement, but as spiritual stability. You will no longer need to push doors open. What belongs to you will recognize you. What is aligned with you will gravitate toward you. What drained you will no longer have access to you. God is teaching you to move without striving, to trust without forcing, to wait without weakening. This is not a season of proving. It is a season of positioning. You do not need to announce your healing. Your peace will speak for you. You do not need to defend your growth. Your consistency will confirm it. Everything that tried to break you has failed. Everything that attempted to exhaust your faith has been overridden by God's purpose. You are still standing not by luck, not by willpower, but by divine intention. God kept you because your future require you whole. Now your responsibility is alignment. Stay sensitive, stay humble, stay obedient. The temptation will be to move fast, to make up for lost time. But God does not need speed. God needs surrender. What is coming will not be delayed. and it will not miss you. You cannot arrive late to what God has already scheduled. The season that drained you is over, and the season ahead will not look like survival. It will look like stability. It will not sound like chaos. It will sound like clarity. It will not feel like striving. It will feel like partnership. God is not asking you to become someone new. God is revealing who you were always becoming. You were never weak. You were being emptied. You were never forgotten. You were being prepared. You were never behind. You were being aligned. And now, as this season closes, you are stepping forward with a quieter confidence, a deeper faith, and an unshakable awareness that God carried you through what you could not explain, and is now leading you into what you could not imagine. What God is doing now is not loud, but it is final. The chapter did not close with applause. It closed with release. Some endings do not come with celebration because they are not meant to draw attention. They are meant to create space. Space for healing, space for clarity, space for God to breathe new direction into a life that was suffocating under old demands. You thought you needed answers, but what you really needed was rest. And God, in wisdom, chose restoration over explanation. There are seasons where God does not explain himself because explanation would distract you from obedience. If God told you everything he was removing you from, you might have resisted the exit. If God showed you the full picture of what was ahead, you might have rushed instead of matured. So God allowed the season to drain you until your grip loosened, until your attack meant weakened, until your heart became willing to move even without full understanding. That willingness is the gateway to the next dimension. Understand this deeply. God never ends a draining season without establishing a strengthening one. But strength does not always feel like energy. Sometimes strength feels like calm. Sometimes it feels like restraint. Sometimes it feels like silence where panic used to live. The strength God is giving you now is not reactive strength. It is rooted strength. It does not depend on circumstances behaving correctly. It does not rise and fall with emotions. It is anchored. The reason you are no longer reacting the same way is because God has rewired your response. You are not numb. You are discerning. You are not detached. You are disciplined. You are not distant. You are discerning where your energy belongs. God had to drain you to teach you the value of focus. Not everything deserves your emotional investment. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Not every battle deserves your voice. Some battles are won by walking away with peace intact. This next season requires wisdom more than effort, discernment more than speed, obedience more than enthusiasm. God is teaching you to move with intention, not impulse. The draining season trained you to listen before acting, to pray before responding, to pause before committing. That pause is not hesitation. It is maturity. It is the space where God speaks clearly. You are no longer begging for what once mattered. That is not because you stopped caring, but because God elevated your perspective. When God changes what you desire, He's not taking joy from you. He's protecting your future. Some desires fade because they were only meant to carry you through a phase, not define your destiny. God is not cruel for removing them. God is precise. The weight that once pressed on your chest is lifting because God has shifted the assignment. You carried what was necessary for that season, but it would be unnecessary and even harmful in the next one. God does not promote baggage. God promotes readiness, and readiness often looks like lightness. You are stepping into a season where what once overwhelmed you will no longer intimidate you, not because you are stronger in yourself, but because you are clearer in God. Do not underestimate the power of clarity. Clarity will save you years of frustration. Clarity will protect you from misaligned commitments. Clarity will keep you from repeating cycles that drained you before. And God is giving you clarity, not through noise, but through conviction. You just know now. You sense when something is off. You feel when something is forced. You recognize when something is aligned. That awareness is not accidental. It is cultivated. God allowed you to be drained so you would stop pouring into containers that had no capacity to sustain what you carry. You were generous beyond wisdom, loyal beyond balance, patient beyond instruction. And God in love interrupted that pattern, not to harden your heart, but to guard it. Because what God is about to pour into you requires stewardship, not sacrifice. The next season will test your ability to receive without guilt, to rest without apology, to enjoy without fear. Some of you are so used to struggle that peace feels unfamiliar. But peace is not laziness. Peace is alignment. Peace is trust in motion. Peace is knowing God is working even when you are not forcing outcomes. God is not rebuilding you to survive again. God is rebuilding you to govern, to lead your life with intention, to make decisions from wisdom, not wounds, to move forward without dragging the past behind you like proof of endurance. You do not need to keep proving how much you can endure. God already knows your capacity and how He is shifting you into a season where you learn how to protect what you have endured for. There will be moments in this new season where you are tempted to return to old patterns because they feel familiar. Familiarity is comforting, even when it is draining. But God is calling you to choose alignment over familiarity. What is aligned may feel quiet at first. It may not trigger adrenaline. It may not feel urgent, but it will feel right. And rightness is the signal you should follow now. The season that drained you sharpened your hearing. You are more sensitive to God's instruction now because you learn the cost of moving without it. You no longer rush decisions just to escape discomfort. You no longer stay where God has withdrawn peace. You no longer confuse endurance with assignment. Those are signs of growth. Those are signs that the draining season completed its work. God is not asking you to forget what you went through. He is asking you not to live there. Memory can be wisdom or it can be weight, depending on how you carry it. Carry the lesson, not the pain. Carry the insight, not the bitterness. Carry the strength, not the scars. What God healed does not need to be reopened for validation. You will notice that doors will open differently now. Not through struggle, but through alignment. Not through exhaustion, but through obedience. What once required force will now require faith. And faith in this season looks like restraint. It looks like waiting when you could rush. It looks like listening when you could speak. It looks like trusting God to do what only God can do. The season ahead is not about proving your worth. Your worth was never in question. It is about positioning yourself where God's purpose can flow without obstruction. That is why distractions are falling away. That is why some connections are dissolving without drama. That is why your priorities are rearranging. God is not dismantling your life. He is decluttering it. And understand this, what drains you will not be allowed to return in the same form. God has closed access points. God has changed boundaries. God has strengthened discernment. The lessons were costly, but they were effective. You will not repeat them unknowingly. You will recognize the warning signs early. You will feel the check in your spirit sooner. That is protection. God is faithful to complete what He starts. The season that drained you did not break you because it was not meant to. It was meant to prepare you for a level of peace, authority, and stability that you could not have sustained before. And now, as you stand on the edge of what is next, you are not desperate. You are ready. You are not striving. You are aligned. You are not exhausted. You are anchored. There is a difference between being emptied by pressure and being emptied by purpose. Pressure takes from you without intention, but purpose removes with precision. God never strips randomly. Every delay, every closed door, every unanswered prayer had a reason that extended beyond your understanding. God was not reacting to your pain. God was orchestrating your growth. You were being positioned for sustainability, not momentary relief. What is coming requires stability of spirit, not emotional highs, and God ensured you would not arrive fragile. You had to learn how to function without external reassurance, because where God is taking you, validation will not always be available. Applause will not always follow obedience. People will not always understand restraint. But God trained you to be anchored internally so you would not depend on external confirmation. That draining season broke the habit of people-pleasing and replaced it with God consciousness. You now move from conviction, not consensus. There were times when you did everything right and still felt depleted. That was not injustice, that was refinement. God was teaching you that righteousness is not a transaction, it is alignment. You do not obey God to control outcomes, you obey God to remain positioned. Outcomes are God's responsibility. Your responsibility is obedience. That understanding frees you from carrying weights you were never meant to bear. The exhaustion you felt was not only physical or emotional, it was spiritual pruning. God was cutting away attachments that looked productive but were spiritually draining. Not everything that grows is meant to remain. Some things must be removed so the rest can thrive. God loves you enough to prune what you are afraid to let go of. That pain was proof of care, not cruelty. Now you are entering a season where your yes will carry more weight and your no will carry more peace. God is teaching you that boundaries are not walls, they are gates. Gates that allow what aligns to enter and keep what drains from returning. You are no longer accessible to everything. And that is not arrogance, it is stewardship. God does not entrust overflow to unguarded vessels. What you call quiet right now is actually recalibration. God is adjusting your internal rhythm so you can move in harmony with divine timing. Rushing would disrupt that rhythm. Forcing would distort it. So God has slowed you down, not to delay you, but to synchronize you. When you move in divine timing, effort decreases and impact increases. You may notice that what once excited you no longer does. That is not boredom, that is elevation. God is shifting your appetite from stimulation to substance, from noise to meaning, from urgency to purpose. You are not losing passion, you are gaining discernment, and discernment will save you from emotional burnout in seasons of abundance. The season ahead will require you to trust God. Even when things are going well, that may sound simple, but it is often harder than trusting during hardship. In hardship, dependence is obvious. In abundance, dependence must be intentional. God prepared you through depletion so you would not forget Him in fulfillment. You learned how to lean when you are empty so you would remember how to honor when you are full. Do not fear stability. Some of you are so conditioned to chaos that calm feels suspicious. But peace is not a warning sign, it is a confirmation. When God is present, striving decreases. When God is leading, clarity replaces confusion. You are not losing momentum, you are gaining direction. Momentum without direction exhausts. Direction without momentum aligns. God is building alignment first. The next season will expose the wisdom you gained in private. Decisions will be made faster because your discernment is sharper. Opportunities will be evaluated differently because your values are clearer. You will not chase everything that shines because you now recognize what sustains. That wisdom was purchased in the draining season and it will now produce fruit. God is not restoring you to who you were before the pain. That version of you could not carry what is coming. God is restoring you to who you were always meant to become. Stronger, calmer, more grounded, less reactive, more intentional. less driven by fear, more guided by trust. This is not recovery, this is transformation. You are allowed to hope again, not naively, but confidently. Hope now is rooted in experience. You have seen God sustain you when there was no visible solution. You have watched strength appear when yours was gone. That history with God becomes your confidence. Not optimism, but assurance. You are no longer hoping blindly, you are trusting knowingly. There will be moments when the memory of the draining season tries to speak louder. Then the promise ahead. When that happens, do not argue with the memory. Outgrow it. Growth silences what fear tries to remind you of. You do not need to relive what God already redeemed. What is ahead will speak for itself. God is not inviting you into a season of ease without responsibility. He is inviting you into a season of grace with stewardship. You will be required to guard your peace, manage your energy, and honor your boundaries. Not because you are weak, but because you are valuable. God protects what is valuable. As you move forward, you will notice that God no longer responds to panic the way He once did. Not because He is distant, but because He is teaching you trust at a higher level. You do not need emergency faith for everyday obedience. God is maturing your faith from survival cries to steady confidence. The season that drained you forced you to confront what you avoided. It brought unresolved issues to the surface. It exposed inner contradictions. And God did not do that to shame you. He did it to heal you. Exposure in the presence of God is not condemnation. It is correction with compassion. Now your spirit is steadier. Your decisions are cleaner. Your direction is clearer. That is not accidental. That is the evidence that the season has shifted. God would not have sustained you through depletion if restoration was not guaranteed. And restoration does not always announce itself loudly. It often arrives as peace, clarity, and quiet confidence. You are not waiting for permission to move forward. God already gave it when He released you from what drained you. The door closed behind you so you would stop looking back. What is ahead does not require you to carry proof of pain, only evidence of obedience. And as you continue walking, remember this, God did not bring you this far to abandon you in transition. He who sustains you in depletion will establish you in fulfillment. You are not stepping into uncertainty, you are stepping into alignment. God is ahead of you, preparing what will not drain you, what will not diminish you, what will not exhaust you, but will instead honor the work He completed within you. God is now training your eyes to see differently, not to see danger in every delay, not to see loss in every pause, not to see rejection in every redirection. The draining season taught you how to recognize false alarms in your spirit before every disruption felt like a threat. Now disruption feels like instruction. You are learning that when God interrupts your plans, it is never to harm you. It is to save you from paths that would have slowly emptied you again. What once felt urgent no longer controls you. That is not procrastination, that is authority. Urgency often masquerades as purpose, but true purpose is steady, not frantic. God is teaching you to distinguish between pressure and calling. Pressure demands immediate reaction. Calling invites deliberate obedience. You are no longer moved by the noise of demand. You are moved by the quiet confirmation of peace. That is growth. The draining season removed your addiction to constant motion. You learned that movement without direction wastes strength. God slowed you down until you learned how to wait without weakening, how to pause without panicking, how to stand still without feeling abandoned. That lesson is essential because where God is taking you, rushing would sabotage what He intends to establish permanently. Now your spirit can sit in uncertainty without collapsing. That is not because uncertainty disappeared, but because trust deepened. You no longer need every answer to take the next step. You only need the next instruction. God rarely reveals the full path. He reveals enough to keep you dependent, not enough to make you independent of Him. Dependence is not weakness. It is alignment. You will notice that God is more interested in who you are becoming than in what you are achieving. Achievement without transformation creates exhaustion. Transformation without achievement creates capacity. God chose capacity first. That is why the draining season focused more on internal work than external progress. Your character was being strengthened to carry outcomes that would have crushed an earlier version of you. There were moments when you questioned whether you were regressing because progress was invisible. But invisible progress is often the most important kind. Roots grow underground before fruit appears above. God was strengthening your foundation, so what He builds next does not collapse under pressure. Surface success without depth is fragile. God refuses to give you fragile victories. The season ahead will test your willingness to trust calm processes. Not everything God does will feel dramatic. Some breakthroughs will arrive quietly. Some answers will come without emotional release. Some doors will open without resistance. And you must learn not to doubt what arrives peacefully. Just because struggle used to be familiar, God is allowed to bless you without exhausting you. You are learning that faith is not proven by how much you endure, but by how well you obey. Endurance was necessary for the draining season. Obedience is required for the next one. God is shifting your focus from surviving storms to stewarding calm. Calm requires discipline. Calm requires boundaries. Calm requires saying no to what once made you feel needed. God is also healing the part of you that equated worth with usefulness. You felt valuable when you were needed, appreciated when you were giving, secure when you were solving problems. The draining season exposed that pattern and broke it. Now you know your value is not tied to how much you carry for others. Your value is anchored in God's purpose, not people's dependence. This new season will invite you to receive without guilt, to rest without justification, to enjoy without fear of loss. And that may feel uncomfortable at first because struggle trains you to stay alert. But God is teaching you that vigilance and anxiety are not the same thing. You can be wise without being tense. You can be prepared without being exhausted. God is not restoring what was taken in the same form. Some things are restored as wisdom instead of opportunity. Some are restored as peace instead of explanation. Some are restored as boundaries instead of relationships. Restoration is not reversal, it is redemption. God redeems by transforming what was lost into something stronger than what existed before. You may realize that you no longer crave closure the way you once did. That is because God became your closure. You no longer need every story to end neatly to move forward. You trust that what God allowed to end did so with purpose. You are free from reopening doors just to understand why they closed. Freedom is trusting God's judgment over your curiosity. The draining season refined your prayer life. You no longer pray to escape discomfort, you pray to align with truth. Your prayers are quieter now, but they are deeper. Less emotional, more intentional. Less pleading, more trusting. God hears those prayers because they are rooted in surrender, not desperation. As you move forward, you will notice that some people will not recognize you anymore. Not because you changed for the worse, but because you are no longer accessible in the same way. You no longer explain yourself excessively. You no longer justify boundaries. You no longer negotiate peace. That does not make you distant. It makes you healthy. God is teaching you to honor signals. Fatigue is a signal. Restlessness is a signal. Loss of peace is a signal. Ignoring those signals drained you before. Honoring them will protect you now. Wisdom listens before damage occurs. You no longer wait until collapse to adjust. You respond early. That is maturity. The season ahead will reward your discernment. Decisions made from clarity will produce stability. Commitments made from peace will last. Connections formed from alignment will not drain you. God is no longer allowing you to build with materials that cannot withstand pressure. Everything now must pass the test of peace. Do not underestimate how much God has healed you. Healing does not always announce itself with emotion. Sometimes healing is simply the absence of reaction, the absence of panic, the absence of overthinking, the absence of self-blame. When what once triggered you no longer controls you, healing has occurred. God has also strengthened your trust in timing. You no longer feel late. You no longer feel behind. You understand now that delay was not denial, it was preparation. You arrived exactly when your character was ready. That understanding will keep you patient when future doors take time to open. You are entering a phase where consistency will matter more than intensity. God is building longevity into your life. Short bursts of passion burn out quickly. Steady obedience lasts. You are learning how to pace yourself without losing purpose. That balance is rare, and it was forged in the draining season. God does not waste pain. Every tear watered something unseen. Every disappointment removed something unnecessary. Every unanswered prayer redirected you away from something that would have cost you more later. When you look back, you will not see a season that ruined you. You will see a season that refined you as you stand now. You are not who you were when the season began. You think differently. You respond differently. You trust differently. That is the evidence that the season is truly over. Not because circumstances changed first, but because you did. God is not asking you to rush into the next chapter. He is inviting you to walk into it with confidence. Confidence not in yourself, but in the God who sustained you when you were empty and is now guiding you when you are restored. The same God who carried you through depletion will establish you in abundance, with wisdom, with peace, and with strength that no longer drains but multiplies. So stand still for a moment and recognize what God has already done within you. Not what you hope will happen, not what you are waiting to see, but what has already shifted in your spirit. The panic is gone. The desperation is gone. The need to force outcomes is gone. That alone is evidence that God has moved you out of the season that drained you. God never removes pressure without replacing it with purpose. God never empties a vessel without preparing it for filling. What feels like stillness right now is not stagnation. It is divine positioning. You are not stepping forward uncertain of God's involvement. You are stepping forward carrying proof. Proof that God sustains when strength runs out. Proof that God guides when direction disappears. Proof that God protects even when you cannot see the danger. The season that drained you gave you a history with God that cannot be argued away. That history becomes your confidence, not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, quiet, immovable confidence rooted in trust. God is now calling you to move with reverence for what you survive. Not fear, but respect. Respect for your limits, respect for your discernment, respect for the wisdom gained in hidden places. You no longer give your energy cheaply. You no longer chase what cost you peace. You no longer stay where God has withdrawn presence. These are not scars, these are standards. What lies ahead will require your full presence, not your exhaustion. Your clarity, not your confusion. Your obedience, not your anxiety. That is why God ended the draining season when He did. You could not carry what is coming while still bleeding from what was. God healed you before advancing you, because advancement without healing would have repeated the cycle. God is too intentional to promote you into another season of depletion. Do not minimize what you endured, but do not glorify it either. It served its purpose and it is finished. You do not need to keep telling the story to prove how strong you are. God already knows. Your strength now will be seen in how you walk forward without bitterness, without haste, without fear. That restraint is power. God has not changed His mind about you. He has not reduced the promise. He has not reconsidered the purpose. What changed was the preparation. What changed was your capacity. What changed was your alignment. And because alignment is now in place, what unfolds next will not require the same struggle to sustain. You are moving into a season where God will confirm internally before manifesting externally, where peace will precede progress, where wisdom will guide opportunity, where obedience will unlock provision. You will recognize this season not by intensity, but by stability, not by noise, but by clarity, not by exhaustion, but by endurance. The season that drained you is over because it accomplished what God intended. It stripped what could not go. It chewed. It strengthened what needed to last. It refined what needed to mature. And now, with your spirit steady and your direction clear, you move forward not as someone recovering, but as someone prepared, established, and aligned with the God who never abandoned you, never rushed you, never failed you, and never will.